First of all, we're here now. We're here now at the grave of Eoghan Rua Ó Súilleabháin. His grave, as you can see, is unmarked. No, originally
In that space there, Eugene.
That's right here, I think.
Right here.
No, there was originally only a stone, just a kind of a stump of a stone.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's a different stone.
Yeah.
Stone from the other one. No, it's just across there now. The paps. You can see the paps of,
Yes.
of there now. And his home place then was just across the valley. He was born outside Gwilla.
Oh right, he's Gwilla man.
So he's looking across the valley.
That's just over there.
And there's a phrase in Irish that they may face the rising sun.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that
he's south facing. His
grave is facing the rising sun. No, the reason he's buried here is that he died in 1784 at the age of 36.
Young man.
Yeah, he's buried here because he was on his way. He had a very addictive life, as I say to you before, as I say in my book. He took to the road early. He was a spailpín.
Right.
Migratory labourer.
Yes.
And he in those days the only job really was for young people, for sons especially, was to go out and labour with a spade. And he spent his life along the Blackwater.
Right.
In the big houses.
Right.
He used to work for the. He started with the Alberts inside the market.
Did he?
He did. Yeah. His first job was with the Alberts, and he's written a poem for. He wrote a poem for Mrs. Albert, for the lady of the house.
Right. Oh.
Then he moved on to the big houses of the Blackwater Valley.
Right.
Where he spent most of his life, because in the 1750s, the mid-18th century, the big houses were getting established.
Yes.
They were being built. I think the Alberts were built around the time as well, and the big house was the centre of the economy of the area.
Yes.
Just where all the work was.
Yeah.
He was very familiar with the Nagels of Ballygriffin outside Mallow.
Yeah.
That's where Nano Nagel came from.
Yeah.
The
founded
woman known
Presentation
Cork,
Order.
Presentation. She was a daughter. She was a contemporary of his.
Yeah.
Though she was older.
Was she? Right.
And he would have known her.
Yeah.
He was very familiar with the brother.
Right.
With her brother, Seamus Nagel, who was a poet himself as well.
Okay.
And he had to leave the Nagel household. He was forever getting in trouble because he was addicted. He drank all his life, and he got in trouble. He was a womanizer as well.
Right.
And a lot of his poems are about women and about his about the fact that he can't stay anywhere, that he's being hounded.
Okay.
Out of the.
I know his name from school, but I can't think of what one of his. What would some of his well-known poems be?
His most famous poem is the spade poem.
Okay.
What's the name of it now? I think of it in a minute. It has been translated by Seamus Heaney.
Okay.
That's his most famous poem.
Okay.
It's about the spade, it's about the making of a spade.
Right.
But having left the Nagels.
No.
It's actually in my book. I can do
we'll look at that in a while.
But having left the Nagels, in those days he actually spent a lot of his time in Cork, in Cork City, because it was the centre.
Right.
It was the centre of the British of the British naval fleet.
Right.
And it was where everything was happening, and there was also a very good artistic scene in Cork as well.
Okay.
A cultural scene.
So he would have fitted in there, albeit being a poor man, but he was. He had his talent and his creativity.
There was a group of poets in Cork called the Coffee House.
Okay.
Poets, and they were called the Coffee House Poets because there was because coffee had just been imported from the Americas, and it was actually available. There was a kind of culture,
right?
And we have a lot of poems, etc., from that era.
Okay.
But
and I never thought of Eoghan Rua Ó Súilleabháin as being part of that scene.
Well, he was, yeah,
right.
He was a very important part of it.
Right.
And he, because of his drink again, his addiction, he was press ganged into the British Navy.
Okay.
The English Navy in those days would have if they were involved in a war, the Anglo-French war, and they needed conscripts.
Yeah.
So he was taken off the street. He was offered a shilling it's where the phrase to take the king's shilling comes from.
Right.
And if he accepted a shilling, he was bound to join the English Navy.
Okay, it was a contract. He was contracted.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he fought in one of the major battles of the Anglo-French War in Fort Royal.
Right.
And which was a war. That war was about the slave trade.
Right.
But the control of the slave trade.
Right.
In the 18th century, it was the slaves were moving from Africa, from the African countries to America, and they had to. The war was between England and France about the control.
Right.
In the Caribbean.
Just going to switch
that. But eventually he got his
served out in the Caribbean.
He served. That's right. That's right. And he wrote a famous poem, a kind of a song called Rodney's Glory.
Okay. And who was Rodney?
For the Admiral. He was the Admiral of the fleet.
Admiral Rodney.
Yeah, and he was so impressed with the song. He wrote it in English, because Ono was an English language poet as well.
Right.
But he was so impressed with it that he let him go.
Oh.
He gave him his freedom.
So his talent got him out of the Navy.
Yeah, that's right.
His habits got him in, and his talent got him out.
So he was left off in England. He joined the army in England, the Army, the Land Army, and eventually he got back to Ireland. And he was still young. At this stage he was 32 or 33.
Right.
And he got back into his old life. His
drinking.
His lifestyle again, which would have been working, drinking. He was a head schoolmaster as well.
Right.
So he would have been teaching. And at this stage, he had gained a name as well.
Right.
He had as a poet,
talented poet,
a performer.
Yeah.
He was he's known for the Ashling, Ashling, which would be the vision poem.
Yes.
A
time when the Catholic rural population was downtrodden and feeling powerless, his poems would have offered them hope.
Exactly, that's right. And the Ashling or the vision poem is a stylistic kind of construct. It's a very long poem. It can go on for pages, and it could go on for an hour.
Yeah.
And the reason was that he had to entertain his audience.
Right.
So when he'd be walking during the day in the fields, he'd have to go into the house at night, wherever he was staying. He was homeless always. He never had a house of his own.
Right.
So he'd have to perform the poem, and he put everything into it. It might be about the Irish and the English, etc., about the war, but it might be about everything else as well.
Right.
He'd bring in about the local, and of course he'd often bring in a lot about there was a very strong kind of a sexual element of his work as well.
Right.
And he'd bring this in the same way that they do now, as a kind of it brings in the audience.
Yes.